Hey, everybody, Kevin Harned with you. Hope you're having a good evening. We've got a lot to talk about. Several alert days stacked up. Here we are on a Tuesday evening, and we're looking at our first alert day tomorrow morning, and then followed by Saturday, Sunday. We'll linger that one into Monday just because of the residual impact we expect. Some folks jumping on now. I know if you're looking for us on the news app, we're having a little bit of connectivity issues there. I think they're trying to get that working. So hopefully we'll be back there. But we're on our social streams. We are on our weather app. So welcome in. We appreciate everybody jumping in here. We've got a lot of winter weather to come over the next couple of days and weeks, it looks like. Several folks jumping in from our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, everywhere else. So welcome in. Thank you. Appreciate everybody jumping in. Let me bring up the, again, what we're looking at outside. Of course, we're under the clear sky now. So with that said, temperatures are dropping. And with the clouds that stuck around today, the ground temperature is very warm. With that, we could have a few problems tomorrow morning. I've already seen a couple of the school questions. Will we have school tomorrow? Well, you know, we'll see how this plays out, but I suspect there are going to be some slick spots tomorrow. Can't say there's going to be enough to cancel school, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a few delays. And if it gets started early enough and the column can cool fast enough where we get mainly snow instead of a little bit of freezing rain in there, that means we would need the intensity to be a little stronger. We could wind up with maybe an inch of snow. It's not out of the question. I think most places see less than that. All right, let me jump into the maps. I see a lot of folks, again, saying hello from the various locations. I'll throw a couple of them up here. There's Douglas. Here's Kathy from Trimble County. Jean in Scottsburg. Hello, hello. Some folks are saying, when do you expect snow to begin tomorrow for Hardin County? Hopefully no ice. Well, we're going to get into that. So let's jump in. And here's another one coming in asking about emergency services. Zachary saying he saw where the Governor Abbott's activating emergency response services, Kentucky or Indiana doing the same. So that's down in Texas. Not yet, but I would not be surprised as we draw closer to the event. You know, they're preparing because Kentucky's going to be affected by this, mainly in the form of snow for us. It's the crippling ice that could be a problem. So I'm going to take this in two steps. We're going to talk about tomorrow, which, you know, it's a minimal event, but the impact could be great, followed by the weekend system, okay? So let's just dive into our maps here, and I'll start you out with looking at the alert days that we have ahead with our confidence, all right? Tomorrow morning, the confidence is about a 6. That's a little more than halfway. We're going to see some precipitation. Again, the amounts are going to be light, but because the ground temperature is below freezing, anything that falls and anything untreated could certainly fall and create some slick spots. So that's problematic, one. Then we get into the Saturday, Sunday event, which is a decent-sized winter storm across the southeastern part of the United States. That's where we have the cold Arctic air moving in. That happens on Friday. And then we have the overrunning of that by moisture coming up from the Gulf on top of that cold Arctic air, and what that spells is a problem in the form of snow for us, but areas farther to the south in that battleground of the push and pull, that will be the potential for freezing rain, ice. Could be an all-out ice storm for some folks down there. Those warnings haven't come out yet. Obviously, it's just Tuesday. All right, so those are the alert days we're focused on. Let's take a look at the current conditions. 24 degrees in Louisville, Indianapolis 23. You get out toward Paducah, it's 30. Everybody's below freezing, most of us in the 20s. We've been there all day long. The front to our north, again, allowing southerly winds to come in, so our temperature should actually start to rise just a bit overnight tonight. but still staying in the 20s. So we may go down another degree or two before we come back up, but still holding in the 20s by early tomorrow morning. With that said, you'll notice on the Futurecast, this is the current view, starting to see those clouds back out to the north and west move closer. We get into our first alert day for Wednesday between 4 a.m. and 11 a.m., a period of brief freezing rain and snow. Again, I think for most of us, this doesn't amount to much in terms of total accumulation, but we don't have to have a lot when the ground is this cold to create some slick spots. And that's the reason for the alert day tomorrow. The timing is everything. You'll notice they have extended the winter weather advisory a little farther south. It now includes everybody but our most northern counties and our most southern county. Most people are in this along 64 and including areas to our north across southern Indiana, and then all the way down to almost the southern part of the viewing area. So that is one warrant advisory, so to speak, that we have already in place for Wednesday. Two separate systems, but we have the winter weather advisory, slick spots possible early tomorrow. Here's the Futurecast. Notice it moves in during the overnight hours. Let me show you the timing on that. I'm going to scrub it back, and we're dry through about 3, 4 a.m., 5, 6 o'clock. Start to see some of the precip move in. 7 o'clock, it's on top of us. It'll be a mix of snow and perhaps some light freezing rain. If we can see the lighter part fall, it will cool the column and give us perhaps a little more snow. So it really depends on the intensity of this as well as this moves in. And then it gradually moves past us, and as temperatures warm late morning to midday, we're back to just a cold rain. So that's what we're looking at in terms of the Futurecast and the timing of that. So that's a critical part of our Wednesday forecast. So keep that in mind. So that takes us through Wednesday morning. All right. In terms of what we expect for our forecast, less than an inch of snow. I think that's probably going to be the case for most. Best chance along and south of the Ohio River. And for the icing or the accretion that we could see on that, again, mainly south of us, central Kentucky along the parkways, minor. This isn't something that's going to disturb power grids or power lines or bring down tree limbs, nothing like that. But it would put a light glaze on cars, on sidewalks, on railing. So you just have to be mindful that if it looks wet, it could be slick, and be careful. And that's the same is true for untreated roads, the bridges and the overpasses in particular. So for your Wednesday morning, we see the precip begin pre-dawn and continue on through the morning rush and past that through about 10, 11 o'clock. That's where we have that winter weather advisory. So that timing is well placed. Why? Bridges freeze first. We say this a lot, but it doesn't always slow people down. They're just like plowing on through it. Yeah, well, you get that cold air that can wrap around it. Obviously, there's no insulation from the ground. And consequently, because of that circulation, we can freeze that a little faster. So bridges and overpasses, untreated areas will freeze first. Keep that in mind tomorrow morning. Well, you see Wavy already at it. We've got a crash on 64. That's the west ramp to 3rd Street in Jefferson County. So even before the precip begins, we've got Wavy hard at work. Going to be busy over the next few days. So our Wednesday commutes, the morning is the one to watch. By afternoon, could there be still a little bit of light rain in places? Sure. But I don't think that's going to slow you down. It's the morning commute you're going to have to pay attention to for your Wednesday. All right, let's talk about what's coming our way once we get past Wednesday. Obviously, with a minor snowfall or ice accumulation, we often think, well, that's not that big of a deal. That doesn't cause a lot of problems. You know, it causes more than if we have heavy snow, because you start to get more than 3, 4 inches of snow. People stay home. They don't get out on the roads. You get just a dusting where temperatures are in the 20s and people are like, oh, this is nothing. And then before you know it, they're in a guardrail inside of another car in a ditch. So we see that anywhere between that 0.5 to 1 inch mark is where we have the highest number of accidents. That's just shy of the 1 to 3 inch mark, which then just falls to the trace to 0.5 inch. So all of those, 0, well, I guess not 0, but just shy of that trace number. So from a trace to 3 inches is where we see the most accidents here in Jefferson County. So again, something to pay attention to. And that's where we're going to fall tomorrow. It'll be a very low end snowmaker for us as we roll through the morning hours, perhaps with a little freezing rain. Couple of tips to know tomorrow. A, give yourself some extra time. Don't use the cruise control when you have ice or snow. Extra distance, yeah, that's always advisable. Gives you a little extra time if you start sliding. Easy on the brakes. Don't jam on the brakes. Might pump the brakes, give yourself a little bit of traction if you can try to find that through braking, and don't overcorrect if you start to slide. All important tips with just a little bit of icing coming our way. Then we get into the second period of the alert days, and this is going to be for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. All right. We're lingering that into Monday. No, it's not going to snow that entire time, but we are in for what could be a lengthy period of snow. And I think at this point, that looks sometime Saturday afternoon to Sunday afternoon. All right. That's impressive. I mean, if it snows more than 12 hours, you're accumulating a decent snow amount, especially if you're in the deepest of the cold air, because ratios will be higher in that zone. All right. You get farther to the south, ratios may not be as high, but you're dealing with more moisture. Where is all that set up? Still a big unknown, frankly. So let's look at the maps on this. There will be a winter storm. Amounts remain uncertain. That's the what. The impact is obviously the accumulations leading to travel trouble. And that will linger for a while because temperatures are going to be cold, and they stay cold. All right, the general setup looks like this. We have the heaviest of the snow across parts of Kentucky. Now, whether that's southeast Kentucky or central Kentucky, still to be determined. A 20 to 40 mile push or change in the track of that area of low pressure isn't all that much considering. The good news is it looks like we are going to be in the cold air. And what that would mean for us is snow instead of ice. Now, could southern Kentucky see some ice out of this? It's possible. It's too early to tell. But the bulk of the state of Kentucky looks to be mainly in the cold air, and that's snow. Southern and southeastern Kentucky, question mark. We'll have to trend that to see what the next run of models coming in tonight will do. And then the better potential for the ice storm would be across parts of Tennessee down into the northern parts of the Gulf Coast states. So with that said, if we're looking at mainly a snow event for us, now it's determining how much and how does the track of the storm on that impact it. Well, if the storm track goes a little farther north, it pulls more moisture up into our area, and that would mean higher snow accumulation and the greater and an increased threat for a little bit of icing across southern Kentucky. If it goes a little further south, then we're on the northern fringe of it. The precip would be lighter, probably wouldn't last as long. That would give us lower snow totals. But regardless, if we're looking on the low end at, let's just say, a 3 to 4 inch snowfall, and on the high end, a 10 to 12 inch snowfall, that's a pretty good snowfall in either scenario. Obviously, the 10 to 12 would be impressive. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it is possible. It is possible. So determining where this lines up will be what we do over the next 2 days, tomorrow into Thursday in particular. So this is where we stand now. It's that area of low pressure that's going to move across the Gulf Coast states. Now, the deal with this is we wind up looking at the data that we have now without any high resolution data. These are long range computer models on a very spatial grid. So we will push into that area. And that's what we'll be looking at as we move forward to the weekend. Hang on one second. I just have to check one quick note. All right, perfect. Hang on one second. I'm having to type a note to the newsroom. They're asking a quick question for the show tonight. All right. So with that said, we look to have a little bit of ice and sleet farther to the south. I still think that's the most likely scenario out of this. At this point, significant amounts of snow and sleet certainly are going to be possible. All right. We will look for that to be on the in the cards and on the table for our viewing area in Kentucky. Lighter totals as you go north, but that doesn't mean not a significant snow for southern Indiana. At this point, the location of the heaviest and any particular point is tough to pinpoint at this time. We just don't know. We don't have enough data yet. The data that we have shows a pretty intense storm moving across. This is far different than just a solid area of low pressure, too. We're dealing with cold air that's going to already be in place. That's going to be followed by an area of low pressure that's sort of wide and spread out that moves across the Gulf Coast that's just throwing tremendous amounts of moisture into that cold air. So as it falls, comes down for many as snow, and where that column is a little bit more shallow of the cold air, that would be where you get the ice. And that, again, is most probable to our south. Travel impacts look likely through that time. And obviously, here's just an example of the model comparison from earlier today. The Euro really has us in some heavy snow, especially along and south of the parkways. That white color shading is heavy, heavy snow. The purple, still fairly heavy, and then you work your way into the blues, which is lighter as you get into Indiana. While the GFS really shows the same trend, heavier amounts to our south and east, but we wind up seeing areas farther to the north with hardly anything. So it just shows the model discrepancy this far away that it doesn't have a handle on it either. So that's where we are. Now, that's the operational GFS. The ensembles show a greater chance of measurable snow. Still not as robust as the Euro, but today the models did come a little more in line. And that gave us enough confidence to boost from a 5 to a 7 on our snow meter. All right. We're approaching that bread and milk range. So for the folks that like to just have a little fun with this, you're definitely going to need the shovels across parts of the area. I don't think there's a high bust potential for this. We're still in that phase of pinning down the setup. So is there some potential? Yeah, it depends on where your mind is, right? If you are going into this thinking we're going to get a foot of snow and we wind up with less than that on that 3 to 4 inch range, you're going to be disappointed, but it's still possible. Either one at this point are possible. And that's the message to take away. We may wind up with a very heavy snowfall, or we may wind up with far less snow here in Louisville, but higher totals down toward the Kentucky-Tennessee border. It will all depend what comes together over the next couple of days. We have an area of high pressure we have to watch off to our north. That's going to push in the colder air. It will also suppress some of the moisture, though. So a lot of things working and moving parts that we're going to have to try to forecast as we get a little bit closer to the weekend. So with that said, that's where we are in the timing of what we're looking at coming our way for the upcoming weekend. Too early for totals. We're going to try to get that out as we get closer to Saturday and Sunday. All right, let me go to some of your comments here. Lana's just saying, hey, I'm from Bardstown. I love snow. Indiana will escape to Florida before the winter storms hit. Hey, that's not a bad idea either. Let's let James Spann. Oh, my buddy James. Yeah, he'll be on the Alabama Weather Network. I guarantee it. Of ice in the AM, kids will be staying home. Probably if ice in the morning, my kids are staying. Can't drive on ice. Nope, that's hard to do. But, we won't have to wait too long for things to improve tomorrow. That is some good news. All right, stay safe. We say that back at everybody, Jamie. Yep, be careful. What time is the next model coming? I don't know what just happened. Well. All right, let's see if we're back. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not even sure if we're streaming or not at this point. We'll go back to our graphics here, and I'll try to answer. Yeah, so I don't know what's up with that. All right. All right, let's try this again. Boy, that was weird. What time will the next model runs come out tonight? Let me even see if we're still on here. That was weird. Something took over on control there, and I'm not sure what it was. The gremlins are out tonight. It's always good to get those worked out before a big snowstorm, though. Know that. All right. So let's see. Bear with me. Okay. Well, we're holding on to the weather app. Let me see where we are on the news side of things. I know we were having trouble there. So let's see. Maybe they're working on it and they accidentally kicked me out. It'll be the first time I've been kicked out. All right. The next round of models will come out within the next hour. We'll start to get some of the model runs in, and certainly by midnight. So those will be the 0Z runs that we look at for the GFS. That will help give us a little bit of guidance to see where that comes in. Because that'll be important, because the GFS has been the outlier in many instances. All right. So we'll see how that goes. Shelly, I appreciate that. Thinking of me and my family. We lost my dad on the 9th. So we just buried him last Friday. So appreciate everybody sending their condolences and saying how much they supported myself and our family. We appreciate that. Let's see. Yeah, talking about the high pressure here. So any updates on that high pressure, Nick is asking about, that will help push or pull the system south. Well, that area of high pressure is important to the forecast because that will push some of it south. It brings in the colder air a little faster. It keeps us deeper entrenched in the cold air. I don't think, as far as precipitation is concerned for us, that we'll see much different than snow here. So for us, it's now going to be a matter of how much snow we see in Louisville and if Southern Kentucky gets in on the ice. So we'll just have to watch that and see how that works out. But yes, that high pressure is going to be, again, a part of the overall game that is played with seeing this system move in. The area of low pressure and the track that it takes. Will it push it further south? If it does, that keeps us in lighter snow. If it doesn't move in fast enough, the question is then, what does the temperature profile look like? So that's really why it's so complicated this far in advance. There are so many things that can change that would influence the forecast. We'll probably try to get our first snow map out tomorrow. It's a little early. Frankly, we'd like to do it on Thursday, but I know this is a big system and people are wanting to pay attention. So we'll probably take a stab at it tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow at 11, one or the two. and then we'll be able to work past that. Joshua was asking, will we be doing a blog tomorrow night? Most likely, yeah, especially if we put our snow map out. We'll do one tomorrow, and we'll just keep it up through the rest of the week. Would I need to get my mower and snowplow ready for the weekend? Believe I would. I think I would. Unless you're in southern, and frankly, I shouldn't even say that, because southern Indiana could still get several inches of snow. Depends on the track of this storm. So I think that most of our viewing area is going to have some decent snow. And when I say decent, I mean anything above 3 inches to as much as a foot of snow. That's the range. So if you were to ask for a range, people put those memes out. They're like, oh, the weatherman, they don't know anything. It's from 0 to 60 inches. Okay. Well, really, it could be anything from 3 inches to a foot of snow across our viewing area for this upcoming weekend. And that's what the data suggests as we sit here today on Tuesday. Here's one. Lakewell says, I fear tracks are never really locked in until it's currently happening. Well, we usually have a decent idea. Now, that doesn't mean it won't move, but I mean, think of hurricanes, for instance. This is a little different than a hurricane, but still a track of an area of low pressure. The idea is we're pretty accurate days in advance of where that's going to go. It's all the other influences around it that sort of weigh in on what will transpire and unfold. What about tonight? Well, tonight, as we mentioned, we have the alert day for early tomorrow morning. A brief period of light snow or freezing rain looks likely, and that just simply means we could have some slick spots. Not going to be a real, fun event for kids to get out and sleigh ride, or perhaps even not have as many school cancellations. I think there will be more delays than cancellations, but I think either are possible for tomorrow. So that's what we think about tonight. All right. Looking at some of the others. This is an important one, too. Won't snow ratios be giving the higher totals on the northern edge? Yeah. A lot of modeling is taking into account the 10-to-1 ratio, but we will have much higher snow totals for some, simply because of that higher ratio. And that happens when we have colder air in place from top to bottom. So we could wind up with, as much as a 15 to 18-to-1 ratio. That would almost double what the models may say in some instances. So if the model's cranking out 2 inches at a 10-to-1, it would be 4 inches if it's a 20-to-1 ratio, right? So that is important and something that we will have to watch. That's the physics of what will happen and unfold as we go through tomorrow, when we're really starting to dissect those boundaries and how tight the gradient is from no snow to a massive snow, and where we may see some ice or sleet mixing in. Sleet also suppresses snow totals, and that's what we have to deal with and see where is the most likelihood of that sleet to mix in. So it's a complicated forecast for the weekend, and we'll be working on it constantly with every model run that comes in. Once we get our initial forecast down and see that we have some agreement in that with the modeling, then usually making the changes is a little easier. That it doesn't just completely go off the rails. But you have to realize we don't have any high resolution data at this point. So here's one. If I'm traveling to work at 5 a.m., will I escape the wintry weather falling? Well, it depends which direction you're traveling, for one, but most likely it moves into Louisville sometime and coming in from our northwest, moving across. So depends which direction you're going. You could beat it if you're going east. All right. And just thumbing through. Yeah, and Chris is saying, what about the 200-mile-per-hour jet overhead? Any surface data? Yeah, I haven't seen a lot in terms of meeting blizzard criteria, but the jet, this is all jet enhanced. I mean, what we're watching with this system that will move in, we see the two different pieces phasing together. So anytime you can phase the subtropical and the polar jets moving across, you get some very strong winds. Getting those down to the surface in something like this, being wind driven, not out of the question, but we'll see, 25-mile-per-hour gust at this point, but it could be higher than that as we get a little closer. You have to realize the center of the low is well to our south, though. So we're seeing the overrunning on this. We'll see how some folks to our south fare with the wind and the ice. I think that's really going to be the critical part down that way. You never want that because then you start to get a lot of power outages, and in some places could be a historic storm. You've heard that word thrown out a lot over the last couple of days, and we're not. I mean, it's just Tuesday. I mean, we still have several days of data to go before we even try to pin down something for those folks. Hope we get covered in New Haven. I was just down there, obviously, and yeah, New Haven with the snow. A lot of sledding going on there. I know. All right, I'm thumbing through. Everybody was commenting a while ago where we had the sound going nuts. Oh my, yeah. Well. Yes, that's what I was saying. I was like, don't know what's happening here. All right, well, we got that cleared up, and we're back. I want to know who's already done the snow dance, Chris. I think it is. It has happened. Yeah. I may not be the most hip person in the room, but DJ Kevin with the remix, right? Remix on the V-mix here. Well, thanks for sticking it out. I was trying to bail out of it, but then if I closed the program out, we'd have lost the whole stream. So I didn't want to do that. All right, back to some of your comments I'm trying to get to here. Oh, there we go. Now we're back. I see in your comments where we came back. A lot of comments tonight. That made my headache worse. I think it made mine worse too. All right. Seven A and 7P are the best new runs. Yeah, we get those runs throughout the night. Every modeling, the ones that have the most data would be the 0Z and 12Z runs. The off-hour runs, the 18 and 6Z, aren't as comprehensive. So that's the reason you saw that comment. Wavy was playing with the controls. Yeah, I'll blame that on Wavy. What time Saturday would it hit Louisville? My flight leaves at 7 a.m. Yeah, again, the modeling is different on the timing. Too early to tell with a tremendous amount of confidence. But the bulk of those models push it probably later into the late morning, afternoon hours. So good luck to you getting out of town before it hits. Bryce is saying, hey, Kevin, early on, 1 inch to 1.5 inches of moisture was talked about with temps so low with that up the snow ratio causing higher amounts. Yeah, it's going to depend where you are in the viewing area, but the colder air allows the ratio to be higher. So, but it can also be drier in places. So again, it's that fine balance. And that's why there's always a sweet spot where you have more moisture, but the column is cold enough to get impressive totals and a slightly higher ratio. Maybe not the highest ratio, but a slightly higher ratio. And that's where you can get some of those really large totals of snow. So you're getting the higher concentration of moisture. Your ratio is just a little bit higher, so it's fluffier. And then you wind up going farther, let's just say north in this case, and the air is drier. And that would promote, not as much of a snow, even though the ratio may be higher. So Andre is asking, will we need help from weather spotters? We always look for your reports, and now they make that easier than ever through MPing. So we see that right into our computers, and it's very, very helpful. All right. Well, we're just about 10 after 10. I've got to get ready for the 11, and I do have a little bit of data coming in for tomorrow morning that I need to look at. So I'll pop one more up here. Are we looking at light and fluffy or heavy wet snow? I think for the most part, we see a lighter snow, lighter fluffier snow here. And all of that will be dependent on the temperature profile. I say that because the cold Arctic air moves in on Friday. So we're already in a deep cold air mass through that time. And then Jeremy's saying, has the storm track moved north? It depends which model you look at. Some of them bring it farther north. Some of them take it and suppress it so far south we get hardly anything. So at this point, it's too early to tell. On this, which model are we leaning towards, the GFS or the Euro? Well, I would say that the things have come in line more with the Euro. The GFS I showed you was just the operational model. The ensembles, if we were to look at all of its members, would show that there's still some potential for significant snow in the area, even though the operational did not, which is a little bit odd, but that's the GFS. It's bouncing around a lot. So it does not have a good handle on this. And so we really need more data to be able to determine which one has really latched onto it. We have Climavision, which is a local company. We used it at Derby, for instance. We don't show it on the air because we don't have it into our computer graphics for on-air use. But we do monitor what the output of that modeling says, and it uses some AI technology. And that is cranking out some pretty good snow across the area. On the order of anywhere from southern Indiana, 5-6 inches, down to Louisville, 8, 9, 10 inches, and then as much as 20 inches of snow in southeast Kentucky. So that's one more model that we're looking at when we're sort of analyzing and trying to decide what our snow map is going to look like tomorrow. But we need consistency, not only from model to model, and we don't have a lot of those because there aren't a whole lot of long-range models, certainly high-resolution long-range models. They're just outside of the Climavision model. There are none that we have. They're much broader based. But what we will be looking at will be consistency, not only in model to model, but run to run. The models have to click and catch on that, okay, now we see why the model's saying this is a valid forecast or a valid point. So that's what we'll be looking at during the day tomorrow. All right, that's what we have. I hope everybody has a great night. We'll be back on in the at 11 o'clock here. Lauren is asking, what time do you think it will start on Saturday? Right now, again, I'd say late morning to mid-afternoon is a decent timing. But same as what I said a while ago, we're still going to have to wait on that modeling to really come into line, because some of it bring it in earlier. Today, it sped up almost 6 hours from what it had yesterday. So we're still bouncing a lot. All right. So let's let the models calm down and get a handle, and then the data will be better. Right now, we're just sort of broad brushing it with a major winter storm moves across the southeast part of the country, and we'll see how that plays out as we get a little closer and can really start to be a little more precise in that data. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody jumping on. I will show you a quick peek at the 10-day as we say goodbye, and then we'll be back on at 11 with an update for tomorrow morning. Here comes the 10-day for you. And I'll pop that up, and you can see the alert days for tomorrow. And then you'll notice by the time Saturday, Sunday, early Monday gets in here, we linger that alert day right through the weekend into early next week. So that's what we're looking at. We appreciate you jumping on with us. We'll say goodbye for now, and then we will be back at 11 o'clock. Have a good evening, everybody.